strange affection. It's too much to ask for. It's too much to ask for. Where is a strange affection?
Hey guys, welcome to LALoveCreative. Today we're talking about the Fuji 100V, my initial thoughts on this camera, and let's get it. Now the Fuji 100V is compact, stylish, gives you a bang for your buck when it comes to image quality, and all that awesomeness in a compact, really stylish looking package. And I was really excited to shoot with it on this project. So I had a project in mind. I had this idea of a flower infused photo shoot. I really thought, you know what, I want to buy a lot of flowers in the downtown arts district and kind of structure the direction in the art direction based on flowers. So I had this awesome model named Isabella. She was really great, and she is coming from an agency I work with, and we kind of went back and forth and tried to, you know, play around with different looks with the flowers. And I thought that Fuji 100V would be perfect for this because I was looking for a filmic and more creative look. One thing I like about a camera like this is it gives you limitations. It has a fixed lens, which means you can't change the lens, 23mm lens, which is really like a 35mm lens, which is a lens I use pretty much a lot of the time when I'm shooting fashion or portrait work. I love that look. It's a lens that's fixed on the camera, you can't change it, and that allows you to kind of have limitations as a photographer. You know that if you want to get close up, you got to get close. If you want to get wide, you got to go wider. Because sometimes when I'm using zooms, I get a little spoiled. Just going back and forth and not moving my body. And having a fixed lens on the camera made me have to move around and get the composition that I actually wanted. The first setup I did with Isabella in the Fuji 100V is I had these red burgundy-esque bed sheets. I hung them up. I tried to make them look kind of like curtains. We steamed them, tried to get them as wrinkle-free as possible. I had my Forza 500 in a big giant softbox with a grid on it. That way it would just control the light a little bit, you know, and try to make sure it doesn't spill everywhere. And I had that light basically on her, and that was it. I had that with the flowers. And this gave me a simple setup that I kind of just transferred over to all the other setups that we did, same light basically. And that allowed me to just focus on composition and just messing around with the film emulation. Now the film emulation on the Fuji is pretty much the only reason why I would consider buying a camera like this. I love the fact that you can basically see how your photos are gonna look graded. Like you're shooting and it almost feels like you're color grading your images at the same time, because you can switch through their 17 film simulations and just kind of figure out which one you like. And then when you're shooting, you kind of have a good idea of how the edited images are gonna look. I wanted each of my 3 setups to feel different, and I wanted them to even look like they were shot on different film stock. So I would shoot with the Eterna profile, I would shoot with the classic chrome, I would shoot with the Estia or whatever. And I would shoot with different film simulations just to see what kind of looks I like. And one thing I liked about the Fuji X100V was you had the option to bake all that color information into a JPEG, or you could shoot a JPEG and a RAW, which would allow you to have that color information that you want in the JPEG, and then at the same time have the RAW file so that you, if you want to not have that color film simulation, you could just edit the photos and do whatever you want with those photos. Speaking of the RAW that comes out of the Fuji 100V, I found it way higher quality than I thought. I don't know, maybe the fact that this is a kind of a consumer, point and shoot. It's supposed to be kind of a street photography, travel type camera. So I never really thought in a professional setting that the images would look so good when I got to post. And when I was editing these images, I was very surprised because the latitude, the color, the dynamic range of these images, being able to push and pull and do certain things with them was more surprising than I thought. And when I was in Lightroom, I was really having a great time, not only just using the film simulations in the JPEGs, but also just color correcting these images the way I normally do my Canon footage and other cameras like that. Another pro tip is, I will put the link in the description. A lot of times when you're shooting with especially because I was shooting so many different color profiles that I kind of started to get confused which ones were which when I was looking at the images in post. So if you use the software, I put the link in the description below. Someone made a like metadata software where you can just upload a photo onto the web browser and it'll basically give you all the metadata of your JPEG. So then you can cross-reference and be like, oh, I use this film simulation. Oh, I use this film simulation on this picture. I think it's a great way of just getting information. That way you don't get confused. The lens that is on the Fuji 100V is really sharp. I like the way it renders skin and the way it basically, you know, captures color. I think it's a really cool lens and a really quality lens. I do think that having a fixed lens on the camera is both great because it limits you as a creative and allows you to kind of just get closer and all that. But then also I feel in the long run, if I'm considering a camera like this, the fact that you can't change the lenses kind of makes me a little skeptical. Yeah, there are adapters on that you can purchase for this camera that will give you different types of fields of view. But I don't know, just the idea of that having one camera where I can't change the lens is making me kind of gravitate to more maybe of the Fuji X-E4, which is slightly cheaper too, especially because quality-wise, they're probably the same. So I don't know, having a lens that I can't change is cool for small things like travel photography or just doing fun shoots, but I think in the long run, I might also not like it. Autofocus. The Fuji 100V's autofocus when it came to photography was pretty snappy. It had face tracking, it was snappy. I found myself when I looked at the photos in post, there were a few more autofocus images, you know, than compared to like my Canon or when I shoot Sony. But for the most part, the Fuji 100V has pretty good autofocus when it comes to photography. The autofocus when it comes to video and the video quality of the Fuji X-E4 in general is not the best. It's capable. It's definitely a good camera if you want to do travel videos or if you want to shoot like a YouTube videos. You can definitely get some beautiful images out of it. And believe me, I've seen some really beautiful footage from the video that comes from the Fuji 100V. It's just for me, you know, I felt like it didn't have the functionality of a hybrid camera that's really optimized for video, like the Canon R6 or, you know, like the Sonys. So I didn't feel as comfortable shooting video with it. It's kind of clunky. There's no stabilization in the camera and it starts to overheat immediately when you do 4K in this camera. So you can get some really good shots out of it. I'm not saying you can't, it's just not the best when it comes to video. One cool thing about the Fuji 100V when it does come to video is you can record the film simulations on the video. So if you want to create some really cool filmic looking footage, you can literally bake that into the video clips. And I thought that was awesome because that just gives you such a cool creative look. One of the things that I didn't like about the Fuji 100V is the menu system. It's confusing, it's hard to find things, and for some reason, I found myself struggling with it more than a Sony menu system or other cameras. And mind you, I've shot now with Fuji a couple times. It just felt very non-intuitive, and I really, you know, maybe it was just because I only had this first impression of this camera. You know, there's probably a lot of people in the comments that will be like, no, you just don't know what you're doing. I'm like, possibly, but I just found that it was slowing me down when I wanted to do certain things. There are a lot of analog, you know, buttons on the camera so that at least you can change like the shutter speed. You can do certain things real quick on the camera. So it's not really bad when it comes to just picking up and starting to shoot, But when I wanted to change certain things, I felt like it's a camera that really needs to be customized to your own and try to make it your own. So I will say the menu system wasn't my favorite from the initial response to it, but I'm pretty sure if I customized it, it'd be pretty good. Now, while I was shooting some of these images, I actually pulled out my Canon R6 because I was shooting for an agency. I wanted to make sure that whatever I shot with the Fuji, because it was looking good behind the LCD, but I was a little worried that maybe when I get the post, it wouldn't, have that standard that I'm looking for. But I found it interesting comparing the images from the Canon to the Fuji 100V. Obviously, I'm biased. I prefer the Canon, but I found that the 100V really held its own when it came to quality. And I'll put some images up on here comparing, different types of looks so you can kind of tell and see what I'm talking about. Now, the Fuji 100V is a strong, capable camera. It has 26 megapixels, a very, very beautiful image, an awesome lens, film simulations. It's compact, it's stylish, which is really a big thing for me, having a small, compact, stylish camera. But would I use that camera, or would I buy something like the Fuji X-E4, which is a very stylish, compact, but interchangeable lens camera, where it's also cheaper. It's about $800 for the body, about $1,000 compared to the $1,400 that the 100V is now. I personally think if I get a Fuji camera, I probably would lean more to the X-E4. I like the idea of being able to test out different lenses on that camera. And even though I think the Fuji 100V looks better, and I think it's a cooler camera, like as far as looks, I think for me personally, as a professional photographer, I would want something that I can shoot more professional work with and have more flexibility when it comes to lens selection. Now, that's all I have to say about the Fuji 100V. I've had a blast shooting with this camera. I can't wait to test out more Fuji cameras in the near future on this channel. Let me know if you have any questions about videography or photography in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Peace.